And the nice part about doing that, sort of like that just in time world building, just in time session prep, is rather than designing everything before the campaign started, when I don't know what the players are interested in, what they've engaged with, what they know about the world, what the big threats currently are, I now know all of that stuff and I can use that to prep. What about certain gameplay mechanics you want to implement? Have you added new things mid-campaign before? It's better to establish that beforehand. Nope. I'll do well. I mean, since I don't have anything sort of written in stone, I'll introduce new stuff at any point. I gave my party, I gave one of my parties artifacts that let them manipulate time. Now, granted, that's because I sort of it was meant as a temptation for them to like kind of break the time stream and create a fun little side quest where they get chased down by time monsters. But like one of them has like a little click button that allows them to like re-roll in certain cases. Another one can they can send an attack into the next round of combat. And the most egregious, the one that I really put there to get them to use it was they have a pendulum that when they turn it on, or they have like it's like a timekeeper or whatever. And whenever they turn it on, they can once a day long rest, basically to a length of time that they choose. So if they want a long rest to last like a minute, they can do it, which is kind of game breaking. But the reason is because I want them using this so that they can face the wrath of time monsters at some point for being really, really irresponsible with manipulating time for like not good reasons. But that was just an idea that was had at one point because they took a trip to the Feywild and there was a time loop arc, and that just seemed like a cool, fun thing to introduce. So yeah, I'm open to adding new stuff all the time. It's I think it's a lot easier to add it later than to try to think, because part of that, like trying to establish it beforehand, is also getting really rigid, right? And now it's like everything has to go a certain way. It's like here, I was looking at this the other day. I still have it open. I've got everything in the sun open, so here, D&D Ryan's world map. Okay. So my world map is not complete. I add a different section to my world map for each campaign that I run, and then the rest is just blank. I don't know what's there yet. So you could say that I practice what I preach, right? Like I'm still learning. I've only run like 3 big group campaigns, so I've got this kind of first section here, second section, and now this third larger section for another campaign. I have to add some islands up here now that I'm doing this like seafaring mini campaign. But even like, so I made this map, like here's the biggest part of the map. So I made this so that everybody wants to make a campaign map. I'm not sure that I would make it in this style again, but when I made it, the party started out here, right? So that's where I spent all my time, was figuring out the starting town. But beyond that, I was like, okay, well, let me create a town. Here's like a settlement in the mountains. It's probably a dwarven mining town. That was it. I created this hollow moor. I was like, yeah, that's probably like a spooky swamp town. That was all that I thought about. Birth, I was like, oh, this is like I named these lakes after like witch names. I was like, I bet there are witches there, and that's it. Like as I bounce around my world map here, so like they've been to a lot of these places. I can tell you a lot about Fort Viridian. It's a walled off elven city in the forest because the party went there. I can't tell you anything about Ridgemont because the party has never been there before. I think I had an idea once, and I put a quest hook in my game that suggested that they were dealing with gnoll attacks and they were looking for help. I might have used this town name in a one shot, but like, yeah, I couldn't tell you the first thing about Alinor. Vague ideas of things like Tyrion, Kingston is the capital city. Um, I know a couple of guild names of some people that are from there. So like once I go out past where my players have ever gone, maybe I jot down some ideas or I just have them in my head. But once I know they're on the road and they're going there, it's like, okay, time to flesh out this location. And the nice part about doing that, sort of like that just in time world building, just in time session prep, is rather than designing everything before the campaign started, when I don't know what the players are interested in, what they've engaged with, what they know about the world, what the big threats currently are, I now know all of that stuff and I can use that to prep, whatever's going on. Actually, one of my favorite ideas that I haven't had a chance to use yet, because I don't have a new campaign to try it on, but the next big campaign that I start, I'm probably not going to introduce a big bad, or I'm not even going to have the idea in my head of who the big bad is of the campaign. I'm going to take a multi-villain approach. Think about it like the Sinister Six, because it's actually a lot easier to create like regional, call it like not quite so big bads, right? And allow them to sort of develop into a potential big bad depending on, because the thing about making the ultimate villain of your campaign is, what if the party doesn't really engage with them very much? What if they don't hate them? What if they don't feel that strongly one way or the other? What if they don't care about, the stuff what if it just doesn't hit? What if it doesn't land? But if I create Dr. Octopus, if I create, Sandman, if I create, Electro, if I make this bunch of villains and allow them to each kind of have a turn, maybe they're all over the place, maybe they team up, or maybe we find out, hey, this goblin character really connected with the party. I'm going to make this guy the big bad. All these other villains are supporting villains, but this is the one because the party hates his guts, and he killed that NPC that they were friends with, and so yeah, I'm excited to flesh out that idea because, man, to not even have to necessarily be super clear on what the big threat is for a campaign would be like, that's one more big idea that doesn't have to, we don't have to figure out until it's time, until it, starts to get really real. But exactly. Yep. Trust in your ability to, look, I am not an improv DM. I don't, like, obviously we all improv, right? Like that's necessary at the table. I'm not saying that I don't do that, but I don't want to sit down and improvise like major plot details. I think my strength is in prepping those things and saying like, okay, here's this interconnected web of stuff. And I think it'd be really interesting to engage with if I was a player. Hopefully they like it too. I can improvise within that at the table. We all, like I said, there's not many ways to play D&D without some level of improvisation. And I think it's a balance. You'll get more of a sense for the more you practice too. Be like, okay, I need to prep this stuff, and this is pretty solid, and these other things we can sort of figure out based on, based on how the party responds, based on what happens, crossing that bridge when you get there. Exactly. That's a good way to think about it.